It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the generational talent in Garden State Media and certainly the leader in trustworthy journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday. Happy Christmas week. Happy holidays, obviously, to all my Jewish friends out there just finishing Hanukkah. And, of course, to all my fellow Catholics and Christians, Merry Christmas in advance to all of you, and even Happy Festivus for the rest of us during this holiday season. I appreciate this. Of course, you tune in from wherever and however you may be doing so. Tonight here, the 22nd of December, here in 2025, the final episode of the year, folks, as I'll be taking a little Christmas break next week here, and well-deserved after the great numbers this year here on Jersey First TV. Folks, I can't say it enough. It takes 5 seconds to like, comment, and share tonight's episode on all of your social media platforms. We do appreciate your support. It really does help get the show out to more people, and it really helps the show grow here every week on Real Talk. And folks, speaking of social media platforms, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and X. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Click that little bell. Of course, you'll be automatically notified of all the great content we bring you every single week via the Jersey First Television Network. And whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, do me a favor, just subscribe. It's free of charge. Of course, it doesn't cost you anything. And you'll be, again, notified of all the great content we bring you here on Jersey First TV. So whether you're doing some last-minute Christmas shopping, walking your dog, doing some yoga, whatever it is you're doing, I'm sure you have your smartphone on you or your tablet. Folks, check out Jersey First, trust me, and check out Real Talk. You'll never regret it. Folks, you want to stick around? We have a great special comment, and of course, the final thoughts. Folks, I can't say enough, really. Let's be honest. Proud here, front and center, to be leading the way with Jersey First TV. Of course, educating and advocating for the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. Brand new episodes of Real Talk air every Monday night live. Of course, check your local listings for start times. And of course, we'll resume with our regular schedule coming up on Monday, January the 5th, after our holiday break. So again, if you haven't supported Real Talk with Jersey First TV, what are you waiting for? We appreciate your support each and every day. As I said before, folks, special comment coming up. A lot to be thankful for during this holiday season. We haven't finished the tallies yet for December, but thus far, folks, as you can see, for the entire year of 2025, over 848,000 views, all organic, folks, nothing boosted, none of that stuff. Again, folks, it takes a great loyal audience like all of you that, again, like, comment, and share the episode throughout the year. And again, we had over 745,000 views for 2024, easily breaking that this year. And again, we haven't even finished calculating December yet. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really, really grateful to all of you that helps make this show possible. And ladies and gentlemen, despite the attempts by so many to cancel yours truly, okay, the most handsome face that runs the place here in Garden State Media. And folks, and trust me, there's been a lot of them. There's been a lot of people out there that have just tried very hard to cancel me, demonetize me. Again, the reality is I'm not going anywhere. I'll share my thoughts on that during a special comment. And folks, again, and just as a reminder, if you really hated me in 2025, I promise you, you're going to hate me even more in 2026. I'm looking forward to that as well. So stay tuned for a special comment. Of course, folks, I'll be talking about during final thoughts. Yes, folks, people are asking me, Fernando, what are the top 3 stories of 2025 for you? Yeah, sure. We could talk about the governor's race. We could talk about legislative races. We could talk about memorable deaths this year, such as the passing of my childhood hero, Hulk Hogan, other stories. But folks, the 3 most important stories in Fernando Uribe's world were the dismissal of Tom Moran, David Cruz, and Ron Zentlinger. As you all know, clowns that have done nothing but a disservice to journalism. Folks, I was ecstatic to see them be shown the door in 2025. So as at home, unemployed, and sitting around, well, you know what? Guess who's still making money, and guess who's still employed at media? Fernando Uribe. So we'll talk a little bit about that during final thoughts. You definitely, folks, want to tune in for that one for sure. Yes, folks, again, it's a little after 7 o'clock here on the East Coast. And again, as I said before, you'll get a lot of enjoyment in terms of how I feel about David Cruz. Certainly, in addition to him, Ron Zentlinger, and of course, last but not least, Tom Moran. Folks, trust me, these 3 guys deserve to get cooked more than ever, especially since they're home unemployed. So kind of good to see that as well. But folks, we'll talk about that later on during Final Thoughts. You definitely don't want to miss out on that. And folks, a little sort of a special context here for tonight. Before hitting journalism, before working in education, higher education, I worked in government for a lot of years, and I understood the importance of collective bargaining. Many moons ago, yours truly was a probation officer here in Hudson County with the New Jersey Judiciary. And coincidentally, via our collective bargaining unit, the Probation Association of New Jersey, I happen to be a vice president for the chapter here in Hudson County for 4 one-year terms. So I understood the importance of talking to members, talking about concerns in the workplace, and really being an advocate for my fellow probation officers. So I've always respected the premise of collective bargaining and why it's so important to keep it going. And of course, in any workplace, it's always good to have really hardworking, conscientious, and caring people that really are concerned about not just your work product, but your rights as workers in the workplace. So, when I think about collective bargaining, I think about its importance. And I think about even now in education, we talk about it on a statewide level, right? The New Jersey Education Association in every chapter, in every county, and every school district. So why not talk to a new member of the Union City Education Association on the executive board, their newly elected president? She's a wonderful educator, a wonderful mom, an advocate, everything else, folks, you can think of. Just a wonderful human being and newly engaged, folks. She's a big fan of the show. And my guest tonight, she's a distinguished president of the Union City Education Association. Folks, the great Juana Dominguez joins us live right now on Real Talk. Juana, how are you?
I am great. I got to tell you, I got a kick out of your intro. It's great. Congratulations on all the views in your show. Wishing you to have many more. And like you said, it really doesn't take much effort to like and share the show.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your comments on the importance of collective bargaining. You and I have chatted a little bit here and there, but I've known you for many years. And you are, like, as they say, somebody that continues to bring light to different issues within our state and our community. So thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's very kind words. Thank you, Juana. And again, congratulations on the engagement. Let me see that rock for a second here. Let me.
Your turn.
Okay.
This happened this weekend. Yes.
Wow.
Very happily.
I just got, folks, if you ever look at the sun too long, you get like your eyes, oh my Dios, like wow. Congratulations to you, Juana, and to your fiance, who I happened to meet recently. I know during the Young Marines dinner at Union City High School. So cheers to him. And my pocket hurts. It's not even my pocket. So, but again, felicidades to you. Again, congratulations on that. And Juana, like I mentioned, right at the onset here, I understood collective bargaining very early on. Again, when I was a probation officer with the Probation Association of New Jersey, that was our, union for probation officers, and 21 counties, obviously 21 chapters. Being a vice president for 4 one-year terms, I got my fair share of having to sit in with management, having to sit in with collective bargaining when the union was negotiating with the judiciary for contracts. I sat in through all of that. So I understand it can be exhausting, but also fulfilling, because what we're doing is really helping out our fellow staff members and really those of us that are looking to make a living, especially as state employees. So I understood that firsthand and how important it was. So let's get to that. Obviously, you were recently elected. Congratulations on that. But for our audience tonight, maybe for some of our members, right, that teachers, administrators, whoever within the UCEA, if you want to just sort of go into some of the responsibilities that you have now. And by the way, shout out to Dan, your vice president, a big fan of the show here. Love him as well. But could you kind of take us through, well, before we get to the responsibilities, take us through leading up to the election this year. Why did you decide to run? And quite frankly, what was your message to members when you were going from school to school, building to building, and trying to garner votes?
Thank you, Fernando. So when I decided to run for election, it was a very quick decision. Unfortunately, my predecessor just led the organization in a very different way. And I knew that I could do better. I knew that I wanted to serve my fellow members, and I wanted to bridge the gap of communication that they longed for. Just to give you a little more context, Fernando, I ran in 2021 and I lost. And it was a difficult moment for me personally. And what happened subsequently is that that's when my daughter passed away. So in those, if you are a believer, I'm a believer in God. I knew and understand now that that wasn't the right moment for me to lead an organization that I could give my 100%. So me losing the election was part of that bigger plan, but that also kind of like prepared me for this term, which is when I decided to run and I decided to ask Daniel Prusco to run with me. And it has been a bigger change. We ran on the premise of informing our members. We ran on the premise of helping our members with the pension system, how to set up their accounts. And we also wanted to have a bigger outreach, visiting our schools, participating in community events. And we have made that push more and more every day. My typical day, obviously goes depending on where I'm needed. I go to different schools. You have certainly seen me in some buildings and some events. But, I pride myself with checking those emails, checking, who has called, who needs help. And as you know, in the Union City School District, we have a large Hispanic community, and language could be a barrier. So I work very hard to bring those materials to them translated, and to just give them the information, because information is power. And that is why I ran. That was the purpose of me running, was that I wanted to be of service. That was the lesson that the loss of my daughter left me, that when we are of service, we have a bigger purpose in life, and that's where I am.
Now, listen, certainly participating in collective bargaining, representing membership is demanding. It's demanding. Again, as I said before, from my experience, having done it in the past, it's, again, laborious at times, but it's fulfilling, because you know that, especially in a very diverse workplace, and I don't mean just diverse like along ethnic lines, we're talking about like age demographics, maybe a generational disconnect, and maybe people not even being tech savvy. I mean, it's as simple as that. And we live in such a modernized world, right? I mean, obviously, we literally have, a computer in our hands at any time. Okay, we can research anything, we can film anything, we can report anything. And the bottom line is that we have a wealth of information at our fingertips. That's not always been the case for, let's say, members that have been working in a school district or any sort of public government job, right? Really for a duration of their life, maybe 10, 15, even 20 years. Again, going back to my experience working within government before, in criminal justice and government in general, I mean, there was still that generational disconnect. We were, people aren't very savvy using computers. Obviously looking up information on the internet. I mean, case in point, working in government and now transitioning, going in and then going into higher education, then now into education now. I mean, people don't understand as something as simple as like, hey, make sure that when you contact Trenton and talk about PERS, the public employee retirement system, hey, you know what? If you've worked in government jobs and they overlap, make sure that you're talking to the right personnel that can make sure that all that time you put in, you haven't lost. Right. So, on a local level within the UCEA, obviously, you've hit the ground running since winning. Same thing with Dan. I know you guys have gone building to building. I know I've seen you guys before. And again, shout out to Dan. He's a big fan of the show, big pro wrestling fan too. So and I love his play-by-play skills. So it's good to see Dan thriving in that as well. But when we think about, let's just focus on pensions right now. Juana, what has been, again, I don't want you to sort of share information or names, but what have been some of the biggest challenges thus far for members when it comes to assessing their pension, what they've accrued thus far, whether or not they can borrow against their pension? I mean, obviously that comes with a penalty, comes with interest, et cetera. But what have you seen thus far in your early months about members concerned about their pension, how to set it up? Or at the end of the day, is it just calling Trenton to get it done? Or is it about talking to you and members of the executive board to try to accomplish this?
It's been a huge task, because, as you said, apart from being a very diverse community that we work in, it is about generations, and it is about being tech savvy. When members come to me that have been working, for example, 10 years in the public school system, and they don't have their pension account set up, that's an issue, because if something were to happen to them, they haven't named their beneficiaries. So it's very important for members that, step one, you get your pension account number, then you can go online and do it. That is, if you are tech savvy. right? As you said, in this digital age, you need to be able to maneuver these systems with your phone or with a computer. A lot of our members don't have that ability, and that is when Dan or I come in and we kind of guide them. As a matter of fact, today I sent a very important email to all of our members that as the year comes to an end, it may be a good idea to revisit your MBOSS account, right? The Member Benefits Online System, so that they can update their system. And if they don't have it, I also put the information there so that they can update it. So it is not as easy as calling Trenton. Why? Because these systems need to be set up. There's multi-factor authentication. There are just so many steps there, obviously, to protect the member. But when they don't know the language and they're not technologically savvy, that becomes a barrier. So that is what we have been working on. When we talk about pensions, the biggest thing that we worked on since winning the election, Fernando, was the tiered system of the pensions. After 2017, our pension was divided into tiers, and those tiers had levels. And so, for example, you have right now 40% of the members in the pension are tier 5. And that's a big issue. Why? Because they have less benefits as if somebody that were in tier 1. I'll give you an example. I've been teaching 23 years. I've been in the school community. I am tier 1. That means that I could retire at 60, and I will not have penalties for retiring with 25 years of service. If we look at tier 5, there are things that members lost as a result of legislation. Obviously, this came under Governor Christie. And when this came about, that members had to pay more into their pensions, a portion of their salary, and also that they were going to be divided into these tiers, it meant that people had to work more. So instead of 25 years of service, they needed to work 30. Instead of being able to retire at 60, they had to retire at 65. There is no possibility of having a disability pension under tiers 4 and 5. That is a possibility under tiers 1, 2, and 3. So just getting the members to understand what tier they were in was a battle. Then letting them know this is what happens when you retire. If, for example, I've been in tier 1 and I want to retire at 55, I could retire without penalty. But the same member that has put in the same time that I have, that has my age, if they were to retire, their pension would be 40% less because of the formula, because of the years they put in, and that is just not sustainable for a college graduate, 23-year-old, to be able, so that you tell a 23-year-old you have to work until you're 65. And that means they have to put in 43 years, whereas I just have to put in 25. It's not equitable and it's not sustainable because a lot of young members and teachers are leaving the profession. So what we have been working on is tier 1 for everyone, which is we started with the petition, and then we did the postcards, now we're doing emails. We have been pushing very hard so that during this lame duck session, we can get the governor to sign. That would be a huge win for all members of the public pension system.
And I appreciate you bringing that down. I think it's really important to, I would argue, make this as painfully simple as possible for our members. And quite frankly, when we're always concerned about lame duck sessions, whether or not a lot of bills do get to the floor of the assembly and the state senate and then subsequently to the governor, right? Obviously, there's a few weeks left in Governor Murphy's term. We'll see what gets signed into office. But let me ask you this, because it's interesting. And folks, again, if you're just joining us live right now, it is 7:20 here on the East Coast. Takes 5 seconds. Trust me, I've counted. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode with Union City Education Association President Juana Dominguez here on Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Now, what's interesting to me is, the amount of effort that's being put in here. Now, is this sort of a joint effort, not just with like every district, right? The district chapters, but at the state level? What are you hearing from the NJEA Executive Board and their new president as it pertains to, listen, it's lame duck. Obviously, legislators have their certain agendas they want to get through. Obviously, I think I was reading today in the New Jersey Globe, I think there's over 100 bills up for voting in the in the assembly coming up now in the state senate. So legislators really, I think, are going to be quite busy for the next couple of weeks right before the new year. And obviously, The next governor doesn't take office until January 20th. But having said that, what are you hearing from the NGEA at a state level as to whether this effort is really working across all 21 counties and all 500 plus school districts? I mean, is the effort there with postcards and emails and people going to Trenton, people reaching out to legislators? What are you hearing about the insistence and whether or not it's going to pay off?
Well, I mean, you said it all. That is exactly what we have been doing. So at the local level, we've been working with each local, pushing through this agenda for the public employees. But I have to say, for example, the goal was to send 100,000 signed petitions, and that was taken to Governor Murphy's office and other legislators on the 4th. December 4th, which was like wear red for ed, right, for education. And so they took these petitions, and obviously it made noise. Then we proceeded to send postcards. So we did lunch and learns, for example, in Union City in different schools. We've done 13 meetings with members at the schools during their lunchtime, bringing them the information, having them sign not only the petitions, but write the emails and also the postcards. The effort has been put there because instead of 100,000 signatures, we achieved 112, right? So we are working very hard, and members are cognizant now that if we don't get this together, this will hurt the pension, because our pension is funded two ways. It's funded through the state and it's funded through the members, right? If we don't have enough members to sustain, okay, that pension, and people staying within the profession, then the pension will be hurt because we won't have the income from both sides. So it's very important that, when I go to schools, people need to understand we technically, the people that are public employees right now, are funding the pension of the people that are retired, just like we want our pension to be funded by new people in the profession, right? We want them to come and to stay, but it has to be something attainable. I think that if we continue to put pressure, if we continue to call our legislators and send emails, we will make noise like we have made noise. So, we made, for example, noise, and we look at all the endorsed candidates that the NJEA pushed, right? Like Mickey Sherrill. Why? Because when they looked at where they stood with NJEA and where they stood with pensions and where they stood with public employees, this was the candidate, and we were able to elect Mickey Sherrill. So that was a big win. So if we continue the steady goal of trying to support those legislators and those politicians that also support us, we will be in a good place. And let me tell you one more thing. Sometimes, when I came to this position, I found it very difficult to speak about politics because I don't like to speak about politics. However, going to the trainings, right, to the president's training that the NJEA provides new presidents and other presidents, I quickly learned that we need to talk about politics, not because it's a red or blue kind of thing. It's because politics are what mandates everything we do in schools.
Sure.
The amount of days that we work, the sick days that we get.
Curriculum, yeah.
Curriculum. So when we say, well, I don't want to talk about politics. No, if you are in education, you must talk about politics. And when I talk about politics, I have this joke. It's not red or blue, it's green. And by green, I mean my pocket. What is it that is good for me as a member? How can I not be a burden to my children because I've worked so much in public education that I don't have to be a burden to them? So that's the way we talk about politics as a president.
No, listen, I think that's fair. Listen, when we talk about, being a political junkie and a journalist myself that talks about this for a living, again, all politics is local. And we learn that at a very young age during our undergraduate years, our graduate years, right? And it really does help shape policy, how we look at the workday, how we look at, especially in education here in New Jersey. I mean, there's over 500 something school districts. There's a lot of talk about curriculum, what curriculum is appropriate in our public schools, parental rights, parents' rights to maybe homeschool their children. And these are all like sort of intertwined and interconnected issues, especially for you, let's say, as a president of a pretty large school district. I mean, Union City schools.
It's the second largest district right after Jersey City.
Yeah.
We have over 2,000 members. I think Jersey City maybe has double that number, close to double. So it is a large system, and needless to say, we are kind of like that unicorn system. And I'll
Sure.
tell you why, because we are all inclusive. Many other school districts, larger ones, have different collective units within the school district. So you'll have the administrators, or you'll have the non-instructional staff, and then you have instructional staff. I think one of the beauties, I mean, there's people that are going to side with, the separation. I think there's power in unity. I think
Sure.
that when we bargain together, we have more leverage. And, we can talk about an all-inclusive winning for all. So it's not only the instructional and non-instructional, but we all are in this together. I think that does make a difference.
No, it certainly does. No, it certainly. And folks, again, if you just joined us live right now, it's 7:25 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is the distinguished new president of the Union City Education Association, Juana Dominguez. Again, folks, like, comment, and share. It only takes 5 seconds. It really helps the show grow and show your support for Jersey First TV. Juana, you mentioned, again, just getting back to the Tier 1 issue. Obviously, it might understand that if it passes through both chambers and the governor can sign it during this lame duck session, would it take effect at the beginning of the next school year in September of 2026, or would it take effect sometime in early 2026? Like, what can you share with us about any clarity concerning that?
I believe it should take effect immediately. However, I'll give you an example. On October 1st, while I was in one of these lunch and learns, Governor Murphy signed the break-in service law. What this meant was that if a mother left for child rearing, or if somebody got sick and they had to leave the pension department, the pension system, I apologize, for some time, they would not lose their tier. Currently, or should I say prior to this law, if a person left the pension system, okay, when they came back, their current tier was lost. They would be sent a check for whatever amount they put into the pension, and then they would start in tier 5. That hurt, obviously, the majority of the people within the pension system, which just so happened to be women. Why? Because women are sometimes, most of the time, are the ones that take time off to take care of their children. But not only women, right? We have people that have had different illnesses, and for whatever reason, they've been out of the system. They had to take a leave. When Governor Murphy signed this law, and this law pertains to TPAF, so this is for the teachers' pension, when teachers came back, they are able to maintain their tier. So now, instead of 2 years, right, of a max, they have 10 years to come back and still maintain their tier. That had an immediate effect, but obviously at the state level, there are things that need to be worked on. As president, my role was to talk to my members and gather some names and then send them to the NJEA so that we could help our members be put back in that correct tier if they had a break-in service. So I'm hoping that we do get this passed during the lame duck session, because it would put everybody back into that tier 1, which is pension justice, because at the end of the day, it's making it fair for everybody in the pension system.
Well said there. Let's move on to another big issue. I know that it is on the minds of a lot of members, and obviously not just throughout Union City and that school district, but really school districts, again, all 500 plus school districts.
600.
600. Wow, it's already grown. Wow, coño. All right, that's a lot of districts. Oh my God. Oh damn. All right.
Coño.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I'm bilingual in this show. I'll drop those once in a while. So, Juana, obviously, one of the big issues, obviously, on the minds of members as we're heading into the holiday week and certainly entering into the new year is benefits and health plans, as well as dental plans. It's more specifically prescription plans and health plans. What can you share tonight that maybe can help alleviate a little bit of the concerns? Because I'm sure members have been blowing up your phone in recent weeks. That email went out. Lots of people reached out to me. And once people knew I was going to have you on, so they're going to be like, well, make sure you ask her because this is an outrage. And, I can't believe this. And I love Horizon and I love my doctor because my doctor I don't know, his office smells really nice and I don't want to go to a new doctor. Y tú sabes que la gente jode por joder, right? But on a serious note, people are concerned about, the switching to a new network, to a new prescription plan. And again, change is difficult for a lot of us at any age. But when it comes to our health benefits, our prescriptions, and especially, let's say, for married couples and families, this can be really an earth-shattering new development. So help people talk them off the ledge here. Let's kind of talk people down. What can you share with us tonight that can maybe bring some, alleviate the tension and really bring some calm to people that are really concerned about their health plans? Obviously, going from Horizon to Aetna, and then from Benecards to CVS. What can you share with us about these plans? And quite frankly, not that you were involved in the decision-making process, but what are you hearing about what went into this? And quite frankly, what can our membership expect in 2026?
Okay, so yes, that has been the hot topic of the last few weeks. I have really been diligent with the information to the members. So let me specify something specifically with healthcare. If you have been reading, statistics are out there that say that health insurance has gone up astronomically. I believe one of the statistics is that for a family plan, it went up. It was 52,000 and it was going up to 75,000. That obviously it makes a huge impact within the school districts. So our district decided to move from Horizon to Aetna. But let's be clear, we are not changing plans, we are changing providers. Let me say that one more time. We are not changing plans, we are changing providers. If you had, for example, a Direct 5, you're going to have a Direct 5 with Aetna. In my case, I had the New Jersey Health Educator Health Plan. I'm going to have the same plan. The plan is the same. What has changed is the provider. And that decision came about because the increase that Horizon was proposing for the district was something that was not sustainable. So, like everybody else, right, the district decided to move to a plan that had the same benefits, but it had less cost. Some of my members have emailed and said to me, Juana, but if it's less, why can't I get money back? It's not that it's less money, it was a less increase. So that in order for the district to maintain the same benefits, they had to move to a different provider. That has been like my email on and on and on. We are not changing plans, we're changing providers. The best metaphor I can give you, Fernando, is if your car insurance went up, I don't know, $300 for a full coverage, and you decide, you know what, I'm going to call another insurance company and see if they can give me the same coverage for less money. That's exactly what happened here. Okay. It's trying to find how the district can manage keeping the same benefits for all members. So let me be clear, same benefits for all members. And if members have a change in their benefits, they need to give me a call. They need to write to me. I need to know what that is. That is the message that I've been putting forth. With CVS Caremark, the main question, do I need to go to CVS? No. CVS Caremark is a prescription benefit provider. So they are part of CVS, and the CVS pharmacy is a small portion of CVS Caremark. So again, same thing. Whatever was covered with Benecard, it's not going to be covered by CVS Caremark. If there's a difference, members need to reach out. Dental and vision have not changed. That is all the same. The contributions of the members have not changed. That is something that we need to really be, cognizant of.
Listen, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish, but I'm sorry to cut you off. But you're absolutely right. It really is important, though, Juana, that members do know these things because, again, just the premise of changing from companies, people get, perfect example. I'll give you a perfect example since we're Hispanic. I think you'll appreciate this humor. Especially with our prescriptions. Like la gente va a decir, ay, Dios mío, yo voy a Walgreens. Yo no voy a cambiar a CVS. I'm not changing from Walgreens to CVS. ¿Qué es esto? Relax.
Or Sugarman, porque you're from Union City. Yo no quiero cambiar a Sugarman, right? On 43rd, I think it is. I don't want to change. Listen, if you go to Fernando's pharmacy or Juana's pharmacy, you can still keep it.
Yeah.
It's a national system.
Yes.
As soon as they put your information in, they put your social security, they're going to see everything is covered. And again, I urge my members, if you go to a pharmacy and something that was covered is now not covered, you must write. The most important thing here is the communication. And that's why I work so hard, Fernando. When I send my emails, I put it in English and in Spanish because members need to understand the benefits are the same. And you know why the benefits are the same? Because they have been collectively bargained. Those benefits cannot change. So, does the Board of Education have a right to change providers? Under the state law, they absolutely can.
Oh, yeah.
What they cannot change is the terms of our contract.
No, listen, and I'm glad you provided that clarity because, again, I'm sure many members are tuning in tonight and wondering, "Oh my God, what to expect in January? I don't know." But again, it's refreshing and also reassuring that the plans have not changed. Like you said, providers have changed, but not the plan. So I'm hoping that you've calmed some people down as we're approaching holiday season. You know, people are stressed out about last minute shopping. It's like todo por último minuto, last minute shopping, and people are now stressed out. I think that's really, really integral here to make sure that our members.
Yeah, and two more things, Fernando. We were able to advocate the change to happen February 1st. So that was number one. So our board wanted to change on January 1st, and it was just a no-go because it was just too soon. Like, people need time. That's one. Number two, we actually gained 700 providers. And in the crossover, there were only 70 doctors that did not participate in the plan. And lastly, we were able to negotiate that if a member was under treatment or they didn't want to change doctors for whatever reason, the board agreed to cover them 6 months or till the end of care, whichever is longer. And the example is what happens to expecting mothers, right? If they, for example, are due in April, well, they don't want to change to a new doctor, right, midway. So the board agreed to pay for the end of care or 6 months. So that is a gain. And again, that is the let's say the benefit of having collective bargaining, of having talks, of being able to really have that conversation with the board.
Let's switch gears here. And something I want to pick your brain about because obviously when we talk about your role, again, your responsibilities as president, again, it sort of just takes me back to when I was working, on an executive board with my own union some years ago. And I remember, I mean, Dios mío, one of the most unsettling things for me, Juana, was having to, again, I liked going from building to building, right? Like the main courthouse and then all the satellite offices, like subsequently, like almost the same thing, like going to different schools, right? And I remember having to sit down with members when it came down for grievance matters, work product, issues, anything else, issues in the workplace. And I remember, oh my God, I mean, I'm very much like old school, so I write everything down. I'm very much a ledger. I'm a notebook guy, right? And I remember going to talk to members. There you go. And I remember going to talk to members, and I would argue for me, one of the most unsettling things was having to sit down with members and say, "Hey, I don't like what is happening to me here at this satellite office." And one of the more unsettling things was having to, okay, sit there, breathe, take the notes down, and then go meet their supervisors or go meet administrators. And again, in my case, within the judiciary, we're talking about the court administrator or the division, whether it was the criminal division manager, the family division manager, the adult supervision manager, like, having to sit there with these managers and, sit across the table with them and say, listen, I'm going here with these notes. This employee is, wants to file this grievance or is objecting to this. And those are really unsettling conversations sometimes. So I went from like everybody's favorite Fernando to like, ese vino otra vez aquí a joder, oh God, And I remember that after a while, I was like, listen, I'm doing a good deed here. I'm helping my membership. But by the same token, again, it's really early in your administration. But are you hearing or receiving emails from members about workplace issues? And what do you feel is the best way for you and Dan? Again, shout out to Dan, who's tuning in tonight, as the president and vice president, that you're going to have those uncomfortable conversations with employees and then subsequently probably with administrators. Take us through like your mindset with that early on in your administration right now.
Well, I need to tell you, Dan is my grievance chair, my first vice president, and we
Okay.
worked together. We worked very. Uh, we discuss any issue there is first. We also speak to our UNICEF representative on a daily basis about these issues. But the most important thing, Fernando, has to be communication and relationships. It comes down to that. People need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to know that when you have a conversation with them, that the conversation will stay there. And like I said to you, in this particular job, I am the president of both. So I am the president of the principal, but I'm also the president of the supervisor, also the president of the custodian. So it's a very delicate issue. Uh, First thing, even I know you mentioned the notebook, I don't really write down things until later because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm taking notes on their conversation. And the really the measure has to go with, is this in the contract? If it's not in the contract, you may have a grievance, maybe because you believe the person doesn't like you, or they mistreated you, or they spoke badly about you, or they're talking about you. Right? These are adults. At the end of the day, right? You have to go back to that beautiful contract book and say, listen, I understand that you're upset for whatever reason. Let's look at the contract. It's not in the contract. I can have a conversation, but I kind of like coach, and so does Dan. We coach our members to be able to take the first step because you can't file a grievance without the supervisor knowing, right? It would be egregious for me to just file something without having checked with all the parties and having investigated. So there is a process. As long as the due process is followed, everything should work out. When Dan and I get a phone call on a grievance, right, we listen to the member. We use personal email so that the member's rights are protected. We go through the steps of what happened first, second, third. Let's take out the emotion. Let's look at the facts, and then we sit down, and then we sit down with the other party. Sometimes it's I'll give you an example. It may be an issue of personality, right? Or a lot of members get very upset when they get transferred. And one of the things that we need to educate our members, and I tell them all the time, we are at the mercy of the board. If the board wants to transfer you weekly from now until September, they can. If they want to, it was your favorite school, you had your favorite parking lot, you had your lunch buddies. I understand these matters of how do I say, of connections and of relationships are difficult. But if the board wants you in X place, that's where you have to go. As long as your paycheck is not, messed with, as long as your benefits are there, as long as everything is the same, you are at the mercy of the board. And that's one of the hardest things that I have to teach my members when they get transferred and they're very emotional and it becomes like a mess. But my thing is I like to listen to them with empathy,
Sure.
with respect. And then I tell them, listen, there is nothing you can do. This is what the board has decided. Or if we have to file a grievance, we have filed grievances, and they've been resolved, thankfully. So we are not, we are here to protect the member, but not really the member. It's mostly we are here to protect the contract.
Sure.
Is the contract being respected? And a hard thing, right, would be even for non-members, I have to protect the contract. If you were to give me a call and you say, listen, I believe my rights were, violated, I still have to sit with a non-member because it's not about the member, it's about the contract. And
Sure.
that is one of the things that we have to educate our members to learn.
Again, and I can't imagine what these sit downs must be like. And to your point, listen, every school year at the end of the summer, for example, there's if a new school is opening up, for example, and teachers need to be reassigned. I mean, you need to you have to produce a roster for a new school or anything like that. So, and again, listen, maybe some might say I'm not calling balls and strikes fairly here, but teachers in Union City are really, really fortunate. I mean, there's a great administration there with the superintendent, Mrs. Abato. Certainly, the assistant superintendents, without question, are hardworking. And again, it's a great administration. In addition
It
to the
is.
administrators in general, all the principals at all the schools, whether it's the high schools, the middle schools, and obviously the subsequent elementary schools, and even the pre-K program, right?
Right,
So
the early childhood center, yes.
so it's again, I think it's fair to say that in your position, even as new as it is, Juana, you have the advantage as opposed to, let's say, other school districts. I don't say this to be hyperbolic. Like, I literally know thousands of teachers in New Jersey, like in different counties and districts, and I can tell you horror stories that people that reach out to me all the time, because I talk about public education a lot on this show. I'm really the only journalist that does that, that talks about it openly and honestly, and actually gets views for it. But the point is that I think at a local level, like you just mentioned, it's so important to have that empathy for employees because, as I said before, it's like la gente tiene esa costumbre. They have, like you said, a certain parking spot. They like the kitchen. They like the kitchen at a certain school. Y el cafecito lo tienen at this temperature. Y tienen la leche at the right amount. And the lunch partners. I get all that. Like, we can always be fickle about what we like as our habits and stuff like that. It happens in every profession, not just teaching, law enforcement, government, whatever, higher education. The point is that I think it's important in your capacity, along with Danny, your executive board, to show that empathy. But have you faced any pushback early on in your administration where, again, people are going to feel what they feel, right? People are going to be like, well, I don't think you're doing enough. I feel marginalized, whatever. People are going to feel the way they feel. What has been the best tactic or technique that you and Dan and executive board members have been able to utilize to sort of, de-escalate a situation? Because if you're in the district 10, 15, 20 years, like, you just feel a certain way.
You do, and I need to tell you, the best part is that, we've mentioned Dan a couple times, and everybody, Dan and I have been friends for a very long time. But the best part of it, Fernando, is that when there's a situation that perhaps I think it's a little bit difficult for me to handle, Dan will handle it, and vice versa. So we work together, and I had to answer an email this morning, and when I answered it, he said, "Oh, thank God you did that." And there's times he answers an email, and I'm like, "Oh, thank God you handled that." We work when there's a member, and you'll have sometimes members that are disgruntled for a number of reasons. The best way is to go right to the member and say, "Listen, I hear you. I understand you. There are things that I wish I could do for you, but I cannot. My hands are tied." Sometimes you'll hear, "Oh, the union doesn't do anything," or the best one, "We need to strike because of this provider change." And I look at them like, we can't strike because they're changing providers. They're not changing plans. So your benefit is the same. You're paying the same amount of money. I understand you want to strike. And if you want to strike, feel free that, put a group together and see what happens. And then that ends up disbanding, that idea, because then they find themselves that they don't have that other partner. So listen, you want to do that, go ahead and do that. And then they don't. So the best way is that as a team, we work together. And I need to shout out my other members, right? My secretary, Priscilla Arroyo, Kim Nunez, my recording secretary. My treasurer does an amazing job giving back with our PEP and FAST grants that we have been able to do for the district. We gave about $34,000 in grants for different programs. We had Hispanic Heritage programs. We have the Chinese New Year coming up. We had guest speakers. We had paint nights and movie nights and yoga. I mean, you name it. Giving money back to our community from the same amount of contributions. So, I'm pushing that very hard with all of our members to try to make programs that, create that family unity, that time with the community. And we're working very hard on that as well.
Again, shout out to the new executive board, and ladies out there, if you're watching the episode here, do me a favor, share it on your platforms. I appreciate it. Certainly
Yes.
Here on the show, as we are, folks, we're live here with Union City Education Association President Juana Dominguez here on the program here on Real Talk, the last episode of Real Talk for 2025 here on Jersey First TV. Juana, let's sort of switch gears here. You have a really compelling story in terms of your upbringing. Certainly, again, you almost blinded me with the size of that rock there. Shout out to your fiance once again. Dios mío, it's like, wait a minute, like I don't need, I don't need laser vision surgery yet, but that blinding light, Dios mío, it really hit me. But in all seriousness, congratulations to you and your fiance. Certainly, we'll talk about maybe when's the wedding date. I don't know. Is it open bar? What's going on? Is there fish? Is there meat? Is there chicken? Well, we'll talk about that. But your story is a really compelling one, from your upbringing to everything you've been doing as an advocate, certainly as an author. Take us through recent years, and I know, again, and my condolences again. Obviously, I know that the loss of your daughter was overwhelming, but take us through this journey and this personal growth you've been experiencing for some years now, and certainly it has served as an example for a lot of people, not just in the school district, but in the community, and really people that you touch on a daily basis with everything you do with your advocacy and activism. So take us through that, please.
Well, as you know, or as you know, for your audience, I grew up in Union City. I moved to Union City when I was like 11 years old. Went to Emerson High School. Right, this is my picture from St. Peter's University. Used to be college. I had my children when I was young. I was a teen mom, and I was able to continue through my studies. Obviously, with the Union City School District, I had amazing teachers that really helped me and guided me in a very difficult time. But, I went into teaching, I had my children, and in 2022, my oldest daughter, Angeli, murdered her sister, Omeli, in my home. It was a very difficult situation. It was a very layered, you know, trauma for all of us, because the murder happened in my home. The murder was with a gun, a gunshot wound to the head, and the murder was witnessed by my 13-year-old son. That was extremely difficult. That was on March 22nd, 2022. And, it was, like I said to you at the beginning of this interview, it was a moment that, really tested me. And what ended up happening, Fernando, was that with the support of my community, I cannot tell you how much I really appreciate the support of Union City, because my kids went to Union City schools as well. And they were there for me. They supported me. My personal community of women that supported me and kept me at my comadre's house, right? My daughter's godmother's house for 4 weeks when I was out of my house. But the experience was so difficult because my daughter, who's currently 30 years old, she's in Kearney, has not been tried yet. She was pregnant. So I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. So again, many layers, right? In my home, gunshot wound. My 13-year-old son saw it. My daughter was pregnant. It was a mess. It was a complete mess. After some time of a lot of soul searching, a lot of therapy, many kinds of therapy, EDM, we did, I can't even tell you how much, but we did trauma therapy, regular therapy. And through all of that, I was able to come out of this experience having learned many lessons. Number one, the fragility of life. Number two, that we control very little. Number three, that every day is an opportunity to be better than the day before. Number four, every day you wake up, you can wake up with gratitude. You wake up with, I meditate and I pray. And then I began to kind of like take steps to lose fear. And when I say fear, that's where like I began to really work on just speaking about the tragedy. Also working with other mothers that have lost or parents that have lost their children, which is very difficult. And then even losing the fear of like making mistakes, right? It's more about the experience and every day just, moving forward and moving forward. I've always been somebody that has, perseverance was my word. But after this, resilience became my word because I choose every day, and I say this in Spanish, to be the architect of my happiness. I choose every day to build, not to destroy. I choose every day to be better. And listen, I have my days where I self isolate and I don't want to talk because it can be difficult.
Sure, sure.
But I take a moment and I go back to my mindfulness techniques and I can be out there. Out of all of that experience, my book, I published my poetry book, which is called Entre Espejismos, right? Um, and I published it, and it kind of like tells a little bit of a story of, of my journey and how to find myself. It isn't me, but, these two women don't have faces. And it's kind of like looking at your journey and looking at yourself as you go through the journey. I like the mirror part of the cover because it tells me a lot about perspective, right? Depending on where you're standing, the perspective may change. So I published my book. It's in English and Spanish. It became a bestseller. I published it in 2023, I want to say. Don't remember the date right now. But it really took a lot to kind of like shed that fear of many things.
Sure.
The fear of public speaking. I was a teacher, but it's different, right? The fear of being incorrect. It was something that I was holding on to, and then I just let go. And that personal journey again has shaped who I am today. And as difficult as it is, I am full of gratitude because that journey is who Juana is today. Why is it that people can't get me out of my, when they come call and complain and send me an email? It's because none of what they say seems tragic to me. It could be
Sure,
tragic to them.
sure.
And I need to understand that maybe that is their tragedy. That is what they're going through. And they also have that understanding for me. I think it goes hand in hand. It's not just what I've been through, but they're kind of like, wow, I'm complaining about this, but Juana seems to have a better attitude, even though she's been through so many things. And I think that is why when I ran, people asked me, what's your purpose of running? And I said, my purpose is to serve and also listen with empathy because I had that at the moment. I had people that did listen to me with empathy and with love. So that journey has been, has shaped who I am, has shaped, the better part of me, and it taught me many lessons.
I mean, listen, absolutely compelling story. It's very motivational for our audience tonight. And folks, if you're just joining us live right now, it's 8 o'clock exactly on the East Coast. I mean, time flies when you're having conversations here on the program. And my guest tonight is Union City Education Association President Juana Dominguez. Folks, again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode. It takes 5 seconds. Trust me, that's all it takes. And you show your support for Real Talk. Again, the leader in independent and fearless independent media here in New Jersey via Jersey First TV. Juana, we've gotten to know Juana Dominguez, the collective bargaining champion, the union president, the author, the advocate, the mom, the educator. Quick lightning round here. Quick. Just, get to know Juana, the woman, the regular everyday girl, as they say. So quick lightning round here for our audience here as we're about to close up shop, as they say here on the episode. Now, I know you're not a sports fan, so I'll skip sports because sometimes some guests, I tell them, oh, do you like baseball? Like, I know you don't like sports.
No, listen, I'm going to tell you what
Sure.
I always tell all of my kids, I will have any party of any end of any sport. So I'll do the Super Bowl, I'll do the World Series, you name it. But on the way there, no idea. No idea.
Okay. How about pro wrestling? Like, you ever have a party for pro wrestling? I mean, like
No, but my son is a wrestler, Richfield Park, and I have to attend these matches, and they're tough and intense. So I've come to learn and like wrestling, as a sport, not so much the pro
hey,
wrestling.
listen, maybe he goes up to be, with the WWE, the worldwide leader in sports entertainment and professional wrestling. We'll see. All right. So, favorite cuisine after a long week? What cuisine? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but any favorite restaurants you can name right now?
Barcelona, I love the Mediterranean, the Spanish cuisine. I'm Dominican, so I love my Dominican food. But when my pick me up, tapas. I mean, I can go to tapas, have a great meal. I can do the Italian, but España, will go first.
Okay. Since you like Mediterranean food and obviously tapas, if you haven't been to Fornos of Spain in Newark, I suggest you go there. It's
Yeah.
amazing, the service, and also even Maison Espagnol in West New York, I think is still pretty good. I would argue. I do miss Maison Madrid. I know that closed after COVID. That in Palisades Park, that broke my heart. I love that restaurant. That was so
Yeah.
good. Definitely. Streaming after a long week, or any particular shows you like to binge watch, or shows? Is it novelas, or is it just old classic TV series or anything?
My mom used to call them no verlas. So yo
Okay.
no veo novela. No, I just finished, this is probably like super lame, but I was never into Game of Thrones and I just watched the whole series.
Okay.
So that was kind of fun. I like, what do I like? I mean, I liked, oh my God, the show with the kids and the alien, Stranger Things was kind of,
Okay.
I don't really watch too much TV stream. I do like to listen to obviously motivational podcast and stuff like that. Like Mel Robbins is like my go-to.
Sure. Sure.
But I mostly read.
Okay. Growing up, obviously, I'm not sure what our age difference is. I mean, I know I'm older than you are, but growing up with music, I was a freestyle guy. I still like listening to some Latin classic R&B. But what do you like? What do you like to listen to? What's on
Now,
your Spotify or your YouTube?
well, let me tell you, I grew up with my mom listening to the classics. So José Luis Rodríguez, El Puma, Juan
Okay.
Gabriel. It was funny because my mother was older and she always had Spanish music. So even though I'm a 90s baby, I didn't know much 90s music. But I like a little bit of rap here and there, but I just went to the Andrea Bocelli concert, which was amazing.
Oh, it's amazing.
I'm very eclectic. I like good music. So as long as, and fun music too, because fun music is fun music. I like my
Uh,
Bad Bunny. What am I gonna say?
oh God, Dios mío, really?
You said, you said freestyle, so I let it go. I really don't like freestyle.
Really? No,
No,
okay.
and I grew up in the Bronx, but I can listen to
Okay.
freestyle for like a minute and then I'm done.
Okay. So you enjoy just like pretty much just listening to Benito and
Listen,
okay.
it's you said what's entertaining, that's entertaining, but not all the time. There's
No,
different.
sure. No, certainly. I'm assuming that the upcoming Super Bowl in San Francisco, you'll be watching the halftime show, right? With Bad
I
Bunny, right?
watch every Super Bowl. Let's make it. I told you I
Okay.
watched the end. So yes, I always have a Super Bowl party, and then I scramble on Amazon to get whatever team color
Sure.
I like.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. You want to have the themed, certainly that'd be good. Listen, I just want a good game. As long as Philadelphia's not playing, I'm happy, but I just want a good game. But that's my thing. Growing up, obviously, I know you enjoy motivational podcasts, you like reading. Any sort of franchise when it comes to movies, Marvel, DC? I know you mentioned Game of Thrones as a television series, but are there any like sort of movie franchise that you've enjoyed? Fast and Furious.
As a mom, obviously Marvel, the superheroes that was like my thing. I loved all of the Marvel superheroes. My favorite one, I mean, I can't even pick a favorite one because I saw them all. My kids, love that kind of movie, action. I love action movies. I think I really, really was into growing up. Any movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in, I
Yeah,
just loved.
yeah, you're right.
Terminator,
Great.
1, 2, 3, 4, 25. It didn't matter. I liked a little bit the Mission Impossible series,
Sure.
Ocean, Ocean's
Oh, the
11 or
oceans. Oh
whatever.
my God, they were. And by the way, since you mentioned Arnold, I mean, I love growing up on '80s movies. So many good genres. I got to tell you,
So
yes, I was
it was
watching
a
the
little
running.
bit.
I was watching the Running Man back in in the late '80s. The new Running Man, not so much. I'll take a pass. I definitely like my classic '80s, '90s movies. I agree with you completely. But Juana, again, before I let you go, you've been such a great guest. I've enjoyed our conversation. I think it's been one of the more informative episodes I've done this year because at the end of the day, sure, listen, I love talking politics, journalism, media, but at the end of the day, when we talk about collective bargaining, it's not just at a governmental level, whether it's working in government, law enforcement, higher education, but even at the local level, like when we talk about boards of ed in over the 600 plus school districts in New Jersey, I mean, there's a lot of compelling topics. And again, going into the new year, whether it's tier one taking effect, obviously we'll see what happens during this lame duck session, but it's also about the issues about curriculum, and parents want to make sure that the best policies are being enacted in our public schools, whether it's uniforms, whether it's raising awareness about, I mean, I can't even believe I'm going to say this out loud, but I mean, the idea that we have to still, listen, we were all kids once, we all did stupid things, but the idea that we have to kind of tell kids about the dangers of vaping, for example, like, I mean, never mind smoking cigarettes. I mean, vaping is just 10 times more dangerous. It's 10 times more toxic. And the idea that, educators and parents have these challenges to face when it comes to what goes on in our public schools, our elementary schools, our middle schools, our high schools. As an educator, I really want to sort of pick your brain on this. Do you get to talk to parents on a regular basis? What are you hearing from parents that are probably the biggest concerns for their kids right now? I mean, never mind uniforms or, curriculum in general, but what are you hearing from parents that tends to be, high on the priority list about their concerns in any academic year?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to let me speak about this. In our school district in Union City, we have parent liaisons, and the parent liaisons in most schools, they have a breakfast for the parents where they bring the guest speakers to talk about different topics. They talk about, obviously, the vaping, like you said, but I think a big topic, and I'm just going to pull this out here, a big topic is the cell phone. And the cell phone, not so much is so bad as a device. The problem is that we have our teens whose attention span is really marked by what they get on their cell phones. They're constantly connected, they're constantly chatting. And I think that is, detrimental to their learning and to the environment of schools. Of course, the vaping is a serious issue that, needs to be tackled. Bullying, things like that. As you said, growing up, there were different challenges, but we need to be, as educators, we need to really be paying attention to the changes in our society. And as changes come along, such as the vaping and the phone and all this stuff, we need to be able to help not only the parents manage it, but also educators and have those policies. Because the phones are really taking a huge, are making a huge impact on our students. As they're saying, it's as addicting as gambling, right? Because they get that dopamine, and the brain is going, and the more they see it, the more they want. And I think that's a huge problem. But I think if we work together, if we continue to pose these topics with the parents in these parent breakfasts, and sending the message home on how to help, I think we can work to make things better. And that's really the point of education. It's not only, right, as you're saying, the curriculum. It's not only what we teach, but it's kind of like in society, how can we educate them to be good members of society, to be productive members, to know you have to show up on time. You have to pay attention. Don't put your phone, take some time for yourself, learn how to journal. And apart from that, our phones, as we know, and the attention, it's provoking a lot of depression in our teens and a lot of mental illness. I know when I said the story about my daughter, we spoke about we didn't speak about mental illness, but that was one of the things that she was going through, right? She was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia. Wow. And unfortunately, it's something that, in Hispanic culture, you kind of brush it off like, Fernandito y Juana se están portando mal, right? They're not listening, but it's really paying attention to the signs. There are many signs of mental illness. If you see your child is struggling, they're not talking to you or others, they're in their room, they're in the dark, we have to be able to make that connection, and the schools can make that connection with the parents. It's also about that, finding the resources within our schools. We have great schools. We have great social workers, and that's something that we can also help with.
You mentioned about cell phones. I mean, I think it's fair to say that sort of a companion concern with cell phone usage and whether or not it's going to be discouraged. Obviously, I know the governor, the state Senate president, and the assembly speaker. I think there's a bill right now, I think, being discussed in Trenton about cell phone banning. I would argue that a companion issue that goes hand in hand is again, as an educator for you, Juana, I mean, the concerns about AI and chat GBT and quite frankly, how students to some extent could become very dependent on chat GBT or AI. I mean, again, I'm probably dating myself when I say this, but whether it's undergrad or graduate studies, I mean, I remember, yeah, the internet's there and you can use a computer, but
You gotta
when
read.
but when when you had to type up your papers, sure, you type right up on Microsoft Word, or now I'm really dating myself when I say this, or Word Perfect. Ay Dios mío, I just said that out loud, right? So, but the point is that when we're using mechanisms, we're using search engines, right? Whether it's ay Dios mío, Netscape, there we go. I just dated myself again. Yahoo or whatever.
I
But
know
now,
you're older than me now.
right? But now we're seeing the impact of AI and ChatGPT becoming almost occupying a considerable presence for students where I think I can make the case that there's a big concern here where students could become too dependent on these mechanisms. And again, they serve their purpose. There's no question. And to quote an 80s movie, I think you'll appreciate, John Connor and Sarah Connor warned us a long time ago about artificial intelligence, Imita. But in all seriousness, I would think that just as there's a concern about cell phone usage, over usage in a classroom or in schools, AI and ChatGPT, I think, has to be concerning for educators too, right?
It is concerning. And right when AI came out, I remember reading an article in the New York Times, and one of the creators said, educators, I know you may be upset because of this AI, but it's comparable to when uh, calculators came out, right? We thought people weren't going to be able to compute. And even though he thought he was defending AI, I also understood that I know a lot of people, and I still know a lot of people that because they have a calculator, they cannot do simple math. So, it is very concerning. And what I told my students last year in the classroom was, I don't mind that you use AI because let's be honest, they will not stop using AI. But what I would do to them is say, if you're going to use AI, you have to be able to give the machine the exact instruction of what you want. And when you get it, you have to read it because you can consider that research. If I told you to Google whatever, you have to take time to read it. The issue is when they don't read it and they give you what ChatGPT or Gemini gives them or whatever other platform, right? When they just give it to you and they don't read it, that is the real danger. So I always, I would tell my students, and listen, and I am very old school in that respect. I would give my students till this day an essay that they had to write in class. And some people would be against it because, they have the computer and then their handwriting, Fernando, is the handwriting of these children is very difficult to read because they're not used to handwriting. I go back to that. Why? Because particularly the test that my students take, which was AP Spanish Language and Literature, was handwritten. And I need you to be able to write correctly. So I went back to the basic of here's a pen, here's paper, here's the essay topic, let's go. When they would realize what they needed, then they were able to manage anything else. And I would say to them, I use AI. I'm not going to lie and sit here. I use it. I love AI, but I have to be able to give the machine the information that I want, and then I have to discriminate and read it and discern, is this right or is this not right? That is the issue.
Well said there. Juana, again, I want to thank you for your time. You've been an incredible resource, not just talking about collective bargaining, obviously, hoping to alleviate some concerns by members tonight when it comes to, again, plans and providers. There's a big difference there, again. So I'm happy that you were able to really provide some clarity on that. And certainly, again, I want to thank you for your time. You've been a wealth of information tonight for my audience. I hope members that have tuned in tonight. And folks, again, like, comment, and share. Show your support for your new president of the UCEA, Juana Dominguez here, and share the episode on your social media platforms. But one last question I got to ask. What's the cocktail hour going to look like? Is there a chicken, a fish, a meat? Is there a veggie or a gluten-free meal? What can I expect at the wedding whenever it is?
Well, the wedding is going to be in June, and we have two weddings because we're going to have a celebration here, civil union here, and then we're going to have a wedding in Dominican Republic for my family and my father there. So we're going to have the todo un poco. I'll send you I'll send you the deets, as the kids say. My kids here,
Okay.
they're gonna kill me. But no, it's going to be, a beautiful celebration. I'm very excited. Again, because of everything that I have happened, as you said, everything that has happened in my life. I gotta say that this came at a moment that was totally unexpected. I also was divorced, and again, the divorce happened prior to losing my daughter, so there were a lot of losses there, right?
For sure.
And then I met, with Wilness, who you have met, and everybody loves him. It's incredible. But at the end of the day, it is a beautiful love story, and you'll hear about it. I'll send you the details later.
All right.
But yes, we will have a celebration in one of the places I think that you kind of go a lot, so we won't mention it.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Juan, again, you've been a wealth of information. Certainly, I've enjoyed our conversation. I certainly look forward to having more of them in 2026 with you in your capacity as president. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
Thank you so much. Well, I want to say thank you to you, Fernando, for having me, for giving me the opportunity to not only share my commitment to the union, but also to share my story, a little bit of what I do, of my coaching, and my messages in this 2026 for all of the viewers that are watching. Step into your skin, leave fear behind, and know that every day is a new day to be better than yesterday, because that is the opportunity that we have, just to be better. We're not perfect, but we can certainly be better. So, with that, I thank you, Fernando, and I'm so excited, and I look forward to conversations with you. And to your audience, really, I thank you. And if you want more information, you can follow me on Instagram, right? It's Juana Dominguez Official. And we will share some, snippets of this interview. But it's been a pleasure, Fernando. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Juana, you see, I wasn't so bad, right? You see,
I
people, I was, mira, como se dice, mira, yo fui, let's be fair. Hoy,
Let's be
esta noche, yo fui un encanto. Let's be real,
claro, esta noche tú fuiste un cielo, un
So,
cielo.
I appreciate it. But in all seriousness, thank you for your time. Have a very Merry Christmas. Once again, congratulations
Thank you.
on your engagement. And folks, again, if you're interested in participating and knowing more about the City Education Association, make sure you follow them on Instagram.
Oh,
And
yeah.
also make sure you check out Juana and support Dan as well and all the great people on the executive board. Juana, Merry Christmas, Happy
Thank
Festivus, and I'll talk to you soon in the new
you.
year on Real Talk. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Folks, good stuff there with Juana Dominguez, the president of the Union City Education Association. Again, folks, listen, I can't say enough about how illuminating it was, how informative it was this evening to talk about, issues I think that really matter to any teacher in any school district about the importance about collective bargaining. And certainly whether it's also about tier one and let's see what the legislature will be able to do during this lame duck session, as obviously the dates are limited, that they're meeting in Trenton. There is a plethora of bills on both the state Senate floor and on the floor of the state assembly. And subsequently, it has to go in front of the governor's desk within the next few weeks, right? I mean, obviously, Governor Murphy finishing out his 2 terms. And we'll see what bills reach his desk, as we know, in the coming weeks, as we see the conclusion of his term. And listen, folks, without a doubt, I think it's incumbent to reach out to your local executive board members, and if they've not been insistent about what's been going on with tier one and whether or not obviously we can get this form of equity to not just administrators but teachers and administrative assistants and all staff in school districts, I think across New Jersey. That's certainly a good thing. Obviously, I can just tell you, having worked in government, having worked in higher education collectively in my adult life, we're all doing a tough job, and we certainly don't always get the most amount of money that we deserve, right, for our labor, for our dedication, and certainly for all of the efforts that we put in to not just help our kids in our communities, but to help our parents across all socioeconomic backgrounds. I can't say enough, really, folks, about the hard work of being an educator and teacher. I've been there. I understand it. And certainly when we see great leadership, right, at a local level when it comes to collective bargaining. I just think of Juana and Dan here in Union City. Of course, again, shout out to everybody in the executive board. I want to leave anybody out, right? It certainly starts at the top, right? But it's a collective effort there with collective bargaining. So shout out to Juana Dominguez and congratulations to her. Incredible life story, folks. Again, if you're just joining us live right now, it's a little after 8:15 here on the East Coast. Do like, comment, and share tonight's episode. And certainly Juana's story, it's an inspiring story. It's also a cautionary tale as well, to make sure that, hey, be conscious, be aware, make a difference, understand the importance of empathy, and to have perspective at all times. So it's a really, really healthy mindset. And certainly, whether you buy your book, if you haven't done so already, do that. Go on Amazon, buy it. It's definitely an excellent read. And certainly you're doing your part to support a great mom, educator, and also an advocate, and also a union organizer locally here in Hudson County. So again, we appreciate you tuning in here on the episode tonight. Folks, again, it's 8:20 here on the East Coast. If you're just joining us live, don't go anywhere, folks. Again, it's the last episode of 2025. What a better way to close it out tonight than with Juana Dominguez, the UCEA president here in the city of Union City. So we appreciate that, folks, without a doubt. Folks, again, it's, as I mentioned before, it's a little after 8:20 here on the East Coast. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode, as you've done all throughout the year, and which has really contributed to the great traffic we've had here on Real Talk. And, we'll talk about that a little bit later during a special comment. But, folks, you know what time it is? It's time for final thoughts. And yes, folks, people have been asking me, Fernando, you're closing out the show on Monday night, December the 22nd. It's the end of the year for you. And, folks, there's been a lot of stories to talk about in 2025. Again, I'll be very honest, thankfully the inauguration of a new president in January, which I was fortunate enough to attend in Washington, D.C. on January 20th, brought back a lot of merch, a lot of souvenirs to a lot of people that knew I was going to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration. And yeah, it was freezing cold, folks, but it was worth every second, like it was in 2017 when I went for that inauguration. But a lot of great stories throughout the year, some tragic passings, obviously. For me, my childhood, folks, it flashed before my eyes. The passing of Hulk Hogan, arguably one of the greatest professional wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling. Part of my childhood just passing like that. It was brutal, right? But we think about stories, obviously, whether it's in New Jersey politics, in media, in activism, advocacy, journalism, whatever you want to call it, folks. There's been a lot of stories that have gotten our attention and certainly have been on our radar. And it depends. It's not even really, what side of the aisle you sit on. I think it's really about what stories matter most to you. And when I think about the three most important stories of 2025 for Fernando Uribe, folks, again, you don't tengo pena. I'm not shy about saying it. But folks, part of the reason this show continues to do well has been of holding people accountable in New Jersey, whether it's in government, whether it's in higher education, whether it's in media, whether it's in activism, whether it's in advocacy, you name it, folks. There's been no shortage of people I've gone after in 2025, and rightfully so. Don't think I just cook people because me da la gana and I'm bored. No, folks, the reason I have to cook people is because somebody has to. And the reason, ladies and gentlemen, that establishment media and legacy media continues to die and wither away, and the reason that fearless independent media like Fernando Uribe continues to thrive is very simple, folks. I talk about the issues that matter to you every single week. I talk about the issues that the establishment media refuses to cover or discuss, or they sort of, cherry pick what they want to talk about in New Jersey. And there's been no shortage of that, folks. Again, as you can see in the collage behind me, there's been no shortage of people that have gotten on all of our nerves, right? Well, let's say in journalism, right? We have Alan Steinberg, who's pretty useless with Insider NJ, right? We see Jay Lasseter there, also from Insider NJ. We've seen Max Pizarro, Bob Hennelly, like useless journalists that we think are doing us a service by reporting responsibly and reputably. And that hasn't been the case, right? Or ridiculous activists throughout the year. And folks, take your pick. There's no shortage of activists that, quite frankly, get on my nerves, that are very, I think, selective in what they want to be outraged about. And you name it, folks, whether it's Patricia Campos Medina, her useless husband, Bob, whether it's Antoinette Pope with the New Jersey Working Families Party, whether it's been, I mean, I'm just looking there, Kayla Burrell at a local level in Jersey City, Hetty Rosenstein, right? Nettie Morsi. I mean, folks, you name it. Lauren Albrecht. I mean, there's been no shortage of bad actors in New Jersey. There's been no shortage of bad players in the game that is New Jersey politics and media and higher education and everything else. Right? Speaking about bad actors in higher education, I think of people like Joe Amaditis over there at Woke State University over there in Montclair, at the Center for, Communications and Media. All right. And other, government employees that, as you can see there, that quite frankly, I can't stand and can't stand me. And the reason, folks, that this show continues to do well and has been doing well since it started on June 1st, 2020, is, folks, again, I'm going to have the uncomfortable conversations that you need to hear. Okay? Talking about kitchen table issues that we talk about in our living rooms that matter to us, kitchen table issues, involving our pockets. Okay? Issues that affect our everyday living, whether it's public safety and property taxes, not woke bullshit like pronouns. No one gives a shit about that. I don't. And I've been consistent on that. I'm the only journalist that's been consistent because, folks, again, that's why you've come to rely on this program. And that's why, again, not just in 2025, but going into 2026, which is why I'll continue to be the leader in trustworthy journalism. Can't say the same for others. But when I think of untrustworthy journalism, folks, three people that really come to mind are my three top stories of 2025. And that's been, thankfully, the dismissal of Tommy Boy, Tom Moran, formerly the editor-in-chief of the New Jersey Star-Ledger editorial board, Ron Zenlinger, Sleepy Ron, used to be the editor of the Jersey Journal, and of course, Uncle Dave, David Cruz, formerly of NJ Spotlight News. Now, let me just dissect each of these clowns individually because, again, I want to be responsible and I also want to pay my respects to them because, folks, if there has ever been any karma, good karma, has been these three idiots behind me here that have talked so much shit, que ha hablado tanta mierda about Fernando Uribe and my brand of award-winning journalism, folks. Don't take my word for it, folks. You can see it behind me. I don't have enough room in this house with all the awards and accolades. Okay? Like real awards. Not awards you get for, participating in a little, whatever bullshit. Like real awards from like members of the House of Representatives in Washington or the United States Senate or the state legislature in Trenton or elected officials at a local and county level or very reputable nonprofits or here in New Jersey, these organizations. They've recognized the importance of fearless independent journalism. But folks, you want to know why people have lost faith in establishment media? It's because of people like this that for years, if not decades, kept peddling and feeding you the same propaganda and bullshit that many of you, unfortunately, have swallowed very, very happily. But folks, there's a reason why establishment media has been dying off. There's a reason why earlier this year, the Star-Ledger went out of print. There's a reason why, as David Wildstein reported at the end of last year, going into this year, why Tom Moran lost his job. And rightfully so, because the guy has been clowned. There's a reason why for over 120 years, the Jersey Journal stood as a beacon of news here in Hudson County. But when you have incompetent people as the editor-in-chief, like Ron Zetlinger, who goes after hardworking university presidents like Andres Acebo at New Jersey University, right? Guys like him that for years, for over a decade, NJC was being run into the ground. But here comes this young Cuban boy, man, who I have an infinite amount of respect for. And you do nothing but attack him. You do nothing but attack him from the methodology of bringing NJCU out of bankruptcy back into vibrancy. Sure enough, folks, again, the chickens come home to roost at some point. It came back to bite Uncle Ron, and we'll get to them. And of course, folks, David Cruz. Where do I even start with it? But let's take each of them individually, okay? Let's start with Tommy Boy, Tom Moran. Folks, one of the more useless journalists in New Jersey media for decades here. This is a man peddling propaganda with the Star Ledger for the longest time. When blatant anti-Semitism was going on our college campuses, whether it was Rutgers University or universities across the river in New York City, you think Tommy ever left his house to go report? Of course not. You know who did? I did. Okay. You know who went to Jihadist University over there on the Upper West Side in Manhattan at Columbia? You know who went to film in front of protesters and stand up for Jewish people and faculty members and students? You know who did? Fernando Uribe, not Tom Moran. You think when blatant anti-Semitism was going on at my alma mater, the State University of New Jersey, Rutgers, in New Brunswick, you think Tom Moran left his house to go? Of course not. Tom Moran was very comfortable ahí en la casa, rascándose ahí el fondillo ahí, doing nothing, earning over $100,000 a year, peddling the same left-wing bullshit. So whether it was his usual Trump derangement syndrome or coddling illegals, you name it, folks, whatever left-wing nonsense you read at the Star Ledger, you can rest assured it was because of Tom Moran. And the Star Ledger made a decision. The Star Ledger made a decision to say, we can't afford to keep employing bullshit artists like Tom Moran. And I get it, Tom. You've had a long career. You're like 91 years old or something. Listen, you've been in the business forever. And I get it, Tom is now trying to write a column that no one reads. Nobody's reading Tom Moran. But sooner or later, you keep peddling enough bullshit, Tom, it catches up to you. And it did. And again, I don't like to say this during the holiday season, but folks, let's be very honest. If anyone deserved to lose their job, it was Tom Moran. He took a once very reputable news site like the Star Ledger. And guess what he did? He ran it into the ground with his atrocious op-eds. You think for years, as Trenton continues to tax us to death, you think that during the 4 years of Joe Biden, when the border was wide open and millions of illegals were flooding the border, you think Tom Moran ever once talked about? No, of course not. Tom Moran would rather virtue signal because he's good at that. Folks, sooner or later, you start losing subscriptions. Sooner or later, you start losing viewers and readers. Because there's only so much left-wing bullshit you can tolerate. And folks, we saw it with Tom Moran. So on behalf of everybody here at Jersey First TV, Tom, believe me, I'm glad you were shown the door, because if anyone really deserved it, it was you, because you spent decades peddling the same left-wing nonsense that you've become famous for. Okay? Don't take my word for it, folks. Just do a quick Google search. Okay? And you kind of picked and choose what journalists or what news sites to go after. And I know you had some unkind words to say about me, and that's fine. I have a thick skin. Folks, I can talk the shit. I can take it too. Okay? But when Tom Moran tries to impugn my character, that's where I draw the line. And that's where, desde ese día, Tom, yo lo he tenido cogido contigo. So when I learned that you were going to become unemployed, believe me, for someone like you to talk shit about my media brand, guess who's still employed and guess who's still making money on it? Not you, Fernando Uribe is. So on behalf of commonsensical, regular New Jersey residents, so long, Tom. One of the best things of 2025 was seeing you become unemployed, and hopefully you stay unemployed. Let's move on to another useless journalist, and another top story was the end of Ron Zettlinger and subsequently the end of the Jersey Journal. Now, it pains me to say that because I grew up reading the Jersey Journal. Okay? I grew up reading and doing the crossword section, and I grew up loving to read the local coverage. But like you and Josh Rosario and Terry West, what you did was you ran the Jersey Journal into the ground. And in recent years, it seemed like you had a personal vendetta against Andres Acebo, the son of Cuban immigrants who came here with nothing but a suitcase, if that. Okay. Grew up in one of the best, if not the best school district in New Jersey, Union City. Okay. Then went to Brown University for his undergrad. Okay. And then went to law school. Okay. And what he did before the age of 40 was become the interim president of one of the most reputable urban universities in New Jersey, New Jersey City University. Okay. And what Andres did was nothing short of extraordinary in the years he was there as interim president. But not a peep from Ron Zellniger, from the previous president. And you know me, folks, I don't ever like to play the race card. Isn't it interesting? A white liberal woman didn't get a smidgen of scorn from Ron Zellniger. But a young Cuban man did. Was the previous president not responsible for running NJCU into the ground? Of course not. Not in Ron Zellniger's world. Ron Zellniger was too busy with his witch hunt of Andres Acebo. Ron Zellniger was too busy, aside from, Andres Acebo, was the same, very much like Tom Moran, the same left-wing bullshit that he kept peddling. Now, when I learned earlier this year, in the summer, that the Jersey Journal was closing its doors and Ron Zellniger will be home, I would think Ron would be happy. Ron at the age of like 96, 97, right? I think that's what you're about, Ron, right? You would think you would be happy being home, and I guess he's home, and thankfully his journalistic career, or lack thereof, hasn't resuscitated itself. So when I say good riddance to garbage journalism, folks, I think of Ron Zellniger. I think of Josh Rosario, Slim, if you remember Josh Rosario, and Terry West and the other useless journalists at the Jersey Journal. But it pains me to say that because the Jersey Journal for over 100 years was a respected institution for news. But after a while, under the leadership or lack thereof of Ron Zellniger, all the Jersey Journal was good for, very much like the Star Ledger with Tom Moran, was just to wrap expensive china and silver when you're moving at the end of the month. That's all it was good for. It wasn't good to read. It just became infested, folks, with left-wing propaganda. And you saw that. But at a local level, you saw it. Folks, what you saw was laziness. And I hate laziness. So when people want to say, oh, what caused the demise of the Jersey Journal? Folks, there's various factors. Lack of advertising, lack of new vendors, whatever the case may be. But folks, the single biggest cause for the demise of the Jersey Journal, you can look at this guy right here. A garbage editor with garbage columns producing garbage journalism. And sooner or later, very much like the Star Ledger with Tom Moran, the chickens come home to roost. And the bill came due for Ron Zellniger. Very much like Tom Moran, who felt the need to take shots at me online. Not a problem. See, Ron, I don't mind taking it, but I'll dish it out. Remember, I'm Cuban. So if you want the smoke, yo con mucho gusto, yo te cocino. I don't got a problem. And I enjoyed cooking you for the end of your career. And for someone to think that maybe podcasting isn't real journalism, well, again, folks, guess who's here making money, and guess who's home scratching his you-know-what? It's not Fernando Uribe. It's Ron Zellniger. Okay? Speaking of being home and scratching your you-know-what, in David Cruz's case, he probably hasn't seen his you-know-what in decades, so probably not a good analogy to think about when we talk about like who's home scratching his you-know-what. But nevertheless, maybe someday he'll see it. Who knows? But last but not least, let me get to Uncle Dave, David Cruz. Folks, if there was ever a person that exemplified the presence of perhaps the ultimate come mierda in New Jersey journalism, it was Uncle Dave. And I'll give you your flowers. Because unlike you, I can be intellectually honest. Okay, I can call balls and strikes fairly. You paid your dues in the business. I get it. You worked in Hudson County, you worked at the Hudson Reporter, then you moved your way up. No problem. And there were times I felt bad for you because you had the very difficult task of having to replace the GOAT of New Jersey journalism, and that was Michael Aaron, God rest his soul. And there isn't a day I don't think about Michael Aaron, folks. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you probably don't follow New Jersey politics or media. I had the pleasure of interviewing Michael Aaron on my podcast in previous years, and I had the privilege of being on multiple occasions on Reporters Roundtable, the great show that Michael Aaron hosted for many, many years. And I get it. Once Michael Aaron had to transition away from sort of everyday reporting, yes, Uncle Dave had to step up. And folks, if you want to talk about dropping the ball and being boring and uninteresting and unimaginative, folks, it was Uncle Dave, it was David Cruz. But the cherry on this Sunday was somehow Uncle Dave thought, in his infinite wisdom or lack thereof, let's be honest, Uncle Dave felt that, you know what? When ELEC was going to do their recent Zoom meeting during this recent gubernatorial election cycle, and by the way, again, look, we have to call balls and strikes fairly. Did anybody do a better job during this cycle of hosting debates than David Wallstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, along with his great staff? Zach Blackburn, Joey Fox, along with Micah Rasmussen, the director of the Rebevik Institute for American Politics at Rider University, for Laura Jones with On NJ News. Did any group of journalists do a better job of moderating and hosting debates than the New Jersey Globe did this year? No, of course not. We saw it when ABC 7 and I believe the Philadelphia affiliate had hosted. Folks, that was awful. Eso fue basura, that debate. But you know who wasn't? The New Jersey Globe. They did an outstanding job. And folks, again, David Wallstein's a friend of mine. He's come on this show repeatedly. He believes in my media brand because, folks, this is media. Okay? The reason Fernando Uribe and Real Talk and Jersey First is continuing to be the leader in independent media and fearless independent journalism is because, again, we talk about the issues that matter. Not coddling illegals, not acquiescing to woke bullshit like pronouns like Uncle Dave does, right? It's talking about real issues. Again, folks, it's not a slogan. It's life. It's real traffic with real viewers and real numbers because it's real talk. Don't tell Uncle Dave, who thinks that he alone was the kingmaker of journalism. Bullshit, Dave. Okay? I've said it before and I said it again. Dinosaurs like you, Tom Moran, Ron Zentlinger, yeah, you're great. You occupied the space for a long time. But sooner or later, the meteor comes. You want to know what the meteor looks like? Right here. And somehow Dave thought that going to a Zoom meeting with ELEC, the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission, and disparaging someone like David Wallstein was good. Folks, again, if you know anything about David Wallstein, listen, he'll be the first one to tell you he's made some mistakes. He's owned up to it. He's moved on from it. And what David Wallstein went on to do was create, not even arguably, it's undisputedly the best news site for statewide news in New Jersey, and that's the New Jersey Globe. But for people like Uncle Dave, who isn't very good at his job, or Ron Zentlinger, or Tom Moran, folks, there's something about envy and being jealous of people better than you. And that's what they were of David Wallstein. And David Cruz thought it was a good idea to go in front of a Zoom, in front of this committee, and disparage someone like David Wallstein. Like, I'm sorry. Did someone think that David Cruz was going to be a good moderator for debate? Folks, did you see the 2021 gubernatorial debates? Did you see the 2017 gubernatorial debates? The ones that David Cruz participated in? Folks, if you need a cure for insomnia, watch Uncle Dave on camera. It's brutal. Never mind like that he's the least photogenic person I've ever seen, but he's brutal in his delivery. But somehow David Cruz thought it was a good idea to disparage someone like David Wallstein, who's done a consistent job, a very good job, of producing highly viewed debates, the way they're organized, the way they're structured, and the way that they materialize organically. And that must have been the last straw at NJ Spotlight News because they felt, hey, we can't keep Este Come Mierda around because he's just useless. Now, whether or not that was the straw that broke the camel's back, or they were thinking about getting rid of Uncle Dave for some time, well, they got their reason. And he was dismissed just a few months ago. Now, I got to give you credit, Dave. Normally, when you're on NJ Spotlight News or NJTV, you do an episode of Reporters Roundtable or a chat box after Memorial Day, and we wouldn't see your ass for the rest of the summer. Talk about a work ethic. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, when you think about work ethic, nobody ever thought about David Cruz. And then shortly after Thanksgiving, we would never see Uncle Dave until January. Now that you're home, I mean, scratching your ass, I mean, I get it. You have a lot of free time in your hands. And sure, you want to keep on doing shows. And even then, folks, this is what's really funny. This was really funny about Uncle Dave. Even the fact that you're not even really working anymore, you're still taking a break. Like, I've been working all year, okay? There's 52 weeks in a year. Folks, you know how many episodes I've done in 2025? 51. Why am I not doing one next week? Because I don't need to. I've done enough exceptional work during the year. Same thing in 2024, 2023. But este huevón, even unemployed now, still isn't going to work a lot. But he's another guy, again, who never liked my media brand. And I don't get it. Like you don't like Cubans, Dave? I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe you don't like Cubans. All right, who knows? But regardless of the fact, Uncle Dave felt it was necessary to disparage my good name. And again, this is the thing. Dave would never have the courage to say it to myself or anyone else. But you felt great disparaging the name of Fernando Uribe and my brand of journalism that people actually watch. Can't say the same for you. Folks, this is not me mean or, mean-spirited during the holidays, but folks, when you're a Mickey Mouse journalist with a Mickey Mouse brand, having Mickey Mouse views, you're going to get Mickey Mouse results. And that's what Uncle Dave reminds us all. Did you think, David, that disparaging journalists that work every single day, 10, 12, 14 hours a day like David Watson, do you think that was going to end well for you, David? No, of course not. Listen, no one ever accused David Cruz of being intelligent, let's be honest. You ever watch him, intelligent is not an adjective I ever think of. Right? But when I think about the top 3 stories in New Jersey media this year, folks, it's this. It's a dismissal of Uncle Dave, David Cruz, of Sleepy Ron Dellinger, and Tommy Boy Tom Moran. Because, folks, if we're going to rescue journalism, if we're going to try to bring some credibility back into any aspect of the establishment media, you have to get rid of these guys. So shout out to the Star Ledger and NJ.com. Shout out to NJ Spotlight News. And shout out to whoever made the decision to end the Jersey Journal. Because if we're ever going to get to a point, ladies and gentlemen, of trusting establishment media, you can't keep hiring or employing clowns like these 3. You just can't. Now, I'm not saying that I'm God's gift to journalism. No one's saying that. I'm close. And the numbers tell you that. And the content tells you that. And the quality of guests tells you that. But there's a reason, once again, ladies and gentlemen, why independent media, whether it's podcasting, Substacks, you name it, there's a reason why they're thriving. And dinosaurs like these clowns are dying. Folks, the meteor came in 2025 for these dinosaurs. Now you would think, and again, I get it. Tom Moran is like 92, 93 years old. Ron's like 96, 97. And Dave is like, I think 90. I think maybe just turned 90 this year. You're not going to change their methodologies. Tú sabes, ellos son tercos. Ellos son, ellos son super cerrados. Ellos no van a cambiar. They're not going to change their methodologies. They're not, folks. They're set in their ways. That's cool. But understand, being set in your ways is going to be a way for you to be shown the way. And that's the way out. And that's what happened to these 3 this year. Sure, folks, a lot of big stories in 2025, but I would argue that if we're going to rescue journalism, well, it's little small baby steps. And getting rid of these 3, goes a long way in making sure that we can rescue journalism and responsible media. Folks, we've been losing it for a lot of years. Maybe in 2026, there's a new dawn on the horizon. And again, we see the rise of independent media, fearless independent media. You'll see it here, folks, with Fernando Uribe and Real Talk. Thankfully, we don't have to see it anymore with these three. So goodbye to 2025. Good riddance to you three. It couldn't happen to three more deserving people in New Jersey journalism. Ron Zellniger, Tom Moran, and David Cruz. Que te vaya pa'l carajo, guys. I'm not going to miss you. Never have and never will. I'll continue producing excellent journalism. You keep doing whatever it is you guys are doing at home. We're not the same. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, before we call it a night here, once again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode. Before we call it a year, a special comment. And folks, I cannot say enough. A privilege to come to you every single week here in 2025. And we haven't done the math yet for December. But at the end of 2024, folks, we finished with 745,000 views on Real Talk. Between the shares and people tuning in live on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. 2024 was a great year. My best year to date, 745,000 views, all organic, nothing boosted. I'm proud to say that in 2025, we eclipsed that number and we might still get more numbers as we're finishing up December. And folks, and I'm really, really proud of this number because I work hard for you every single week. I work hard to make sure that I bring you compelling conversations, that I bring you outstanding guests, okay? That I bring you conversations that matter, not just because it's an election season, but about topics that matter to everyday New Jersey residents and to even people watching across the country who I appreciate, okay? And that's the great thing about this show. And I'm seeing the numbers tonight, and let me tell you, it's absolutely amazing. And I couldn't be more grateful. And folks, I'm deeply humbled by your support because without all of you, that number behind me would not be possible. It just wouldn't be. And I am deeply grateful to all of you. But you know what I'm even more deeply grateful to? Because folks, Real Talk with Fernando Uribe and my media brand in general, even talking politics with the Hudson Media Group, faced some considerable scrutiny this year. Okay? There were various attempts to cancel me this year. And I don't mind naming names because they deserve to be outed and shamed. Whether it was disgusting activists in Jersey like Caleb Burrell or the Jersey LGBTQ Alliance or other local organizations or, wait for it, for body positivity models in Jersey City and other left-wing progressive activists that took numerous shots at my character and my credibility and my name. Whether it's on my own page or, some of the local useless clowns that we see on HUD posts that comment, whether it's on their Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Okay? The typical, useless activists, like, Chiquitin, all 5'2" of them, like Hector Segura, for example, and others in Jersey City, Hoboken, throughout Hudson County and New Jersey. Folks, there was trust me when I tell you, there was serious effort to try to cancel Fernando Uribe and demonetize Fernando. And guess what happened? It didn't work, folks. Guess who's still here? Guess who is still jodiendo? Guess who is still talking about the issues that matter? And guess who's still going to fight for all of you? Whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a progressive, a conservative, a libertarian, even a socialist, as intellectually dishonest and bankrupt as those idiots are, I'm going to keep fighting for all of you that watch this show. Because I'll keep talking about the issues that matter to everyday New Jersey residents. Whether it's about politics or journalism or media or activism or higher education or traditional education. Folks, that's why this show continues to do well. That's why this show gets those numbers. So despite all these numerous attempts to cancel me, and we all know who they are. The local social justice clowns and the woke fools and the pronoun warriors and all the insufferable feminists and the smelly cat ladies. Folks, there was no shortage of people out to get Fernando Uribe. Trust me when I tell you. But guess who stayed to fight? That's right, yours truly. Because I'm a lot of things, folks. Coward isn't one of them. And I make sure to keep fighting for all of you every single week here on this show. And that's why, again, that number exists. It's not by accident, not by luck, folks. It's because of effort, hard work, and most importantly, again, because of you guys and girls that tune in at home every week, that tune in live and then share the replay. And for a lot of friends and colleagues and even frenemies or haters, you still tune in every week. And again, I thank you. And I'm deeply humbled. And as you all know, folks, I'm not the most humble guy around. I'm the least humble guy around. Okay? But I'm humbled when I see numbers like this. And I owe it to all of you. Because without all of you, the success of Real Talk, as we enter year 6, coming up in just a few weeks here coming up in 2026, the success of this show would not be possible without all of you. And again, I'm deeply thankful. I'm thankful to all of you that make it possible. I'm thankful to this collage of useless nitwits and clowns in New Jersey media, higher education, journalism, advocacy, activism, you name it, folks. The reason the numbers are good for this show is because they make it easy for me. And trust me, they're not going to stop anytime soon. When you're this level of dumb, I mean, you're not going to stop being dumb all of a sudden. But guess what, folks? I'm not going to stop either. Because bad behavior and bad actors need to be called out. I'm happy to do it. I've become quite good at it. And I'll continue doing that in 2026. So on behalf of the staff, production team here at Jersey First TV, and yours truly, I want to thank you for a successful 2025. Once again, folks, over 848,000 views, all organic, between Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and X. Folks, again, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I know I have a heart. Trust me. Some of you may not think so, but I do. Thank you for making Real Talk the success that it is every single week on Jersey First TV. I love you all. And thank you for contributing to the success of everything with Fernando Uribe Media. And that's our show this week, folks. Once again, I do want to send a shout out to my guest tonight, Juana Dominguez, the distinguished president of the Union City Education Association. And I also want to send a shout out to her book. Obviously, folks, if you haven't done it already, make sure you buy it on Instagram. Great book there. Of course, it's called Entre Espejismos on Amazon. Okay. And also a shout out to the executive board at the UCEA, Leo and Priscilla and Kim, Eva, and Daniel. Shout out to all you guys and girls out there, again, for working so hard for the membership and, of course, for tuning in tonight. Happy to give you guys a plug and wish you all a very happy Merry Christmas and happy holiday season. Be safe out there. Please party responsibly as always. Folks, that's our show for 2025. That's the year here on Jersey First TV. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you like us, of course, and follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us, and also make sure you check us out on Spotify or SoundCloud for all the great content brought to you by Jersey First TV. Folks, I can't say enough. If you haven't done it already, thank you for supporting the leader in fearless independent media here in New Jersey. It is Jersey First TV. Front and center, Fernando Uribe leading the charge here every Monday night live. Check your local listings for start times here on the Jersey First Television Network. And folks, I cannot say it enough. If it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's Real Talk here on the Jersey First Television Network. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed the generational talent in Garden State Media and the leader in trustworthy journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe, wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. Again, a good end to your Hanukkah season. Happy Festivus. A great holiday season, folks. Enjoy with friends and family. Enjoy the time off for a lot of us. Enjoy it, play some video games, clean up around the house. I don't know, do some laundry, catch up on a good book you haven't read. Whatever it is you're doing, folks, enjoy it peacefully with family and friends. And again, on behalf of everybody here at Jersey First TV, we want to wish you once again a very happy and healthy holiday season. Folks, that's our show for this year. We'll be back here after a little bit of a break on Monday night, January the 5th. And of course, check your local listings for start times. And folks, again, just as a reminder, I can't say enough about how grateful I am because of the traffic. And for everybody that hated Fernando Uribe in 2025, trust me, folks, I'm going to make sure you hate me more in 2026. Get ready, buckle up, folks. I'm not going away. Neither is my mouth, and neither are my opinions. Trust me when I tell you, I'm here to raise hell, and ain't no one stopping me. Ain't no one canceling me, and ain't no one silencing me. That's for sure. Again, folks, enjoy your holiday season. Please party responsibly. Again, enjoy with family and friends. Look after your elderly neighbors during some of the cold days. Make sure to look after your kids. Enjoy the new year. Again, please party responsibly on New Year's Eve. If you can Uber or Lyft it anywhere, please do so. Okay? Arrive alive for 2026. Folks, we'll see you in the new year. Happy holidays and best wishes for 2026, folks. Once again, we'll see you on Monday night, January the 5th. For the newest edition of Real Talk in 2026 here on Jersey First TV. Folks, love you all. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.